Hello! And thank you for clicking on this video. So I wanted to ask you, do you live in the gray area? And I've definitely talked about the gray area in a few videos. So I just wanted to ask the question, do you live in the gray area? If you haven't watched any videos where I talked about this before, then this is an important one. So I wanted to bring it up. Um, Now, you may be confused with the question, or you may be saying, no, you don't. Or, of course, you may say, yeah, you do. You may be thinking more in terms of your job or than like your free time, I would say. However, I definitely wanted to bring this up because it's important to be aware of. First of all, like, do you live in the gray area? What it is, and then really, and do you live in it? And then you can make wiser decisions. Let me put it that way. So, anyways, and I've talked about this before. So, like the gray area, and what I mean by the gray area is, you know, like things. Well, they say things are black and white, and then there's a gray area in between. Well, let me tell you that the reality of things are black and white. Okay, there is no gray area. The gray area is an illusion. Okay, um, things either are or are not. It's either true or it's not true. It's either love or not love. It's either peace or not peace. And there's definitely obvious things that we can see it in that way. But then, there's some questionable things. And then we get in that gray area. Okay? But they're illusions. But we usually get in that gray area because we don't know a standard to compare to, a measurement. Okay? Which is God. I've talked about this. So it's not man's measurement. Don't compare yourself with other people who have lack of understanding, or everyone's has their own lessons, all their own, make their own mistakes. That's not the standard to compare yourself to. It is God, who is love. Like, he not just loves you, but is love, is peace, is the fruits of the Spirit, okay, that I've talked about. You can Google fruits of the Spirit, and the Bible verse should come up and tell you about that. But the problem is with that gray area, that's where conflict arises, okay? And that's where people say, I'm right, you're wrong. No, you're all, and then there's conflicts, and depending on what the topic is, it can get very emotional. And then of course that's where, like, literally it gets physical, or it just keeps getting darker and darker, really, to be honest. Now, not all things are, but still that gray area, that's kind of where we say our ethics and morals are. But again, we're using that's a worldly way of thinking. That's a physical way of thinking. That's a flesh way of thinking. And all that stuff is temporary, and it's all death. So we're in this box that everything we're looking at to try to find out the best thing is death. And then depending on our own perspectives and all that stuff, we think things that are different things are the answers. Well, there's only one truth. Like, truth is truth. Like I said, it's either true or not true. Okay? But because they're illusions, that's why people can have different conclusions in that gray area. And this is where the enemy manipulates us and deceives us. Okay? Like, and that's why you need to involve God. You need to desire God, because God is truth. And to know truth, you need to know God. And to know God, you need to know truth. And to desire it, if you desire it, you need to be it. You need and you need to desire, crave. I've talked about this. You need to really feel it. Just like you feel like, think about the one thing in your life that you desired the most. Just think about that moment, and you felt it. It was on your mind. You couldn't stop thinking. You craved it. Well, you got to crave it more than that. You got to make it first. You make God. That's why I say make God first, because that is putting truth first. That is putting love first. And if you desire it, that means you have to be it. It's not what you say and you just act differently. Okay? You have to have integrity, because that's what makes it real. Anybody can just say anything. And that's why I've mentioned what Jesus said. You know the tree by the fruit it bears. It's kind of like, don't take what people say, but see what they do as truth. It's the same line of thinking. If the tree is good, the fruit it bears is good. If the tree is rotten, the fruit it bears is rotten. Okay? That's the standard. That's the measurement. That's the way to tell. That's the way to discern. But again, you do need to involve God, because, again, to know the standard. Because you need to know the standard so you can truly discern, and you can see what's illusions and what's truth. Okay? So I'm kind of getting off a little bit on tangents here, but I want to bring up the fact, this gray area. Like Jesus said, it's better to be hot or cold than lukewarm, than in the middle, than wishy-washy. If you don't stand for anything, you're going to fall for everything. And this is truth. But and most of my life, that's kind of like I was wandering in the gray area, like I mentioned, like the Israelites wandering in the desert for 40 years. I was kind of like, most of my life I was wandering in that gray area, and depending on what happens or events or what I read or what I'm exposed to information wise, like that gray area, things would change within that gray area. Well, this is the thing: truth never changes, because truth is God, and God has always been and will always be the same. That's why it's stable. I've talked about build off that foundation that doesn't shake, by truth, off love, off peace. And I've mentioned before where really things, the truth is actually simple. Okay? God doesn't confuse. Okay? He makes things clear, and the truth will set you free. And the way the truth will set you free is because things are really simple. And all this stuff we focus on, and all these things we debate, and all of these things we put our energy in, and then stress about and worry about, and then we're confused, and then we don't know what is what. That's all that gray area. But the reason why people can have different conclusions is because it's an illusion. Okay? Like, we're here to learn lessons, and God gave us free will. So we're able to use that free will to make mistakes, but we have to be humble. Okay? You don't want to feed your ego. You got to be humble really to see truth as well, because it's hard. It is very hard. You have to admit that you're not perfect. Like, I know we all say that, but some people don't really think that about themselves. But, anyways. But you have to, and so you really have to desire, and that's why you have to desire truth above all else. Truth above feeling good. Truth above the easy road. Truth above yourself. But once you get it, then that's because it's hard. You go through that fire, but once you come out the other side, you're pure, because all the BS and illusions fade away, because they'll always crumble, because they're not substance. Like, truth is real. Truth doesn't rely on what you believe. Truth is truth. Illusions and lies require people to believe them to exist. Does that make sense? So anyways, I'm getting back to the gray area. Sorry, I'm kind of going off on some things here, but they're important. But still, the gray area is an illusion. Okay, especially like if you're in that gray area, and again, like I said, there's no standard, and this world keeps the truth from us because of the rulers of darkness from an early age, and shape our. I kind of mentioned this yesterday. Shape our our reality, like our limits of reality in this box, which and Rich, that's why you need to involve God to lift that lid and see truth that's outside that box. You have to expand your awareness. You need to involve God, okay? Because He will show you. He wants to show you, but with our free will, we can choose to live in illusions because they feel good. We're more comfortable there. But if you desire truth no matter what, first of all, you have to admit that you don't know everything. Yes, again, you have to humble yourself. But if you desire to know truth no matter what, that's when He's going to show you, and that's when you'll be able to see truth. Because if you don't want to see it, you're not going to see it. You have to desire it. Because you have free will. You have the choice. You have the power. God is always there, but again, He gave us free will, and we're going to make mistakes. And He's known you since the beginning. He still created you, so He loves you. Never forget that. He knows everything you've thought and you've schemed and done, but He still created you. So that means He loves you. Okay? So don't forget that, because that's the rock. And when we feel bad about ourselves, involve Him and talk to Him about it. And that's my rock, is I know He knew what I was going to do, and He still created me, and He still loves me. Okay? Anyways, that's really important, though, to get through these trials and tribulations, to face truth when it's hard, to help you on this journey. Okay? But I wanted to bring it up, like actually the question, do you live in the gray area? Does your standard change depending on the situation? Oh, well, that situation's different. Oh, that situation's different. How many times have you said that or thought that? I know I've heard it, and I know I've said it and done it myself. You know, the way I act is different depending on the circumstance. Now, I have to admit, like I've said this before, I mean, if someone's coming after me to hurt me, I'm going to defend myself. I'm not going to turn the other cheek. Like, I'm not perfect. Okay? That's an example. But ideally, if you need to try to achieve the standard, because the standard never changes, and the standard is our Lord Jesus Christ, is God, is the Holy Spirit, the fruits of the Spirit. Okay? And the way you discern is, don't just believe what people say, but see what they do. Are they producing fruit that spreads love, peace, and joy, and gentleness, and kindness, and patience? Or are they spreading fruit that creates like the lack of those things? I've talked about this, because light is substance. You can measure the speed of light. Darkness is the lack of light. You can't measure the speed of darkness, and that's the way things are. It's really the lack of love. It's a lack of God, because God are these things. God is these things, and God is the great I am that I am. Like, God is. Like, if it's not God, it's nothing. Okay, that's why it's darkness. That's why it's death. And He is the life. And He's trying to teach you how to have life, to be life. That's kind of the overall purpose in a way. But each of us have our own individual purpose. So don't forget that. You're important. You're more valuable than what this world tells you. Okay? But this world also tells you tons of deceit. Like, things we put our trust in, the things that we're told to put our trust in, taught to put our trust in, or think we have no choice but to put our trust in, you have to really question that, but you need to involve God to really see truth. So, but the truth is that there is no gray area. And that's where problems happen. That's where conflicts happen. That's where confusion happens. Because the enemy uses confusion. He wants you confused. He doesn't want you to know who you are because he's scared of you. He doesn't have God's grace. Satan is scared. You're more powerful than Satan because you have God's grace. We have God's grace. He doesn't. He can't do anything on his own. So he has to make us do things that he wants done. And he can only deceive us. But he is a master at deceiving because that is the only tool he has. Make you think that fear is real. Make you think that there's randomness, that there's chaos, that there's uncertainty, that there's a gray area. Because in that gray area, that's where he manipulates us. I'm telling you, that's where the rulers of darkness manipulate us. So I want to bring this to your attention, and especially on things that you would, like you think you have a standard, but it changes depending on a situation. That's a red flag that it's a gray area, okay? But literally things are really simple. It is either love or not. It is either true or not, okay? Like it either is or it is not. That's that's the way it is. And the thing is, it took most of my life to see this, but it's freeing. The truth will make you free because when you know this, there is no, and you know there's no gray area. You don't get trapped in that illusion. You don't get banged around like a ping pong ball by these manipulators of this world. And it is freeing, and it's the rock that doesn't shake. And so you are emotionally and mentally strong because God makes you strong because he shows you truth. And through, like I said, going through trials and tribulations, going through the fire, you gain experience, you gain confidence, you gain wisdom. And that's what Satan is afraid of you. That's why he is constantly trying to deceive you. But don't, and you may not believe, of course, and I don't blame you. If you may not believe that there's no gray area, there's always a gray area. Well, there's no, there's not in reality, the real reality of it is that there is no gray area. And when you really know that, but to know that, you need to involve God and you need to go through trials and tribulations really to kind of know it. But when you do, all the BS of this world is you see it for illusions and what it really is. It's all temporary. It's all death. It's all snares. I've talked about snares before. Snares that the enemy uses for us. And I'm still, of course, God has shown me a lot, but there's a lot of lessons that I'm working on. So I'm not saying that, I've achieved anything, but I have learned a lot of lessons going through a lot of fires, because God has led me down this way. Things that I thought was bad in my life and sucked and all that stuff really had a purpose. And I've talked about this. There's always, no matter how painful or how much it hurts or how much it sucks, how much you suffer, it's temporary, and there is a purpose with an expected end that's good. So don't forget that. I'm kind of going on a long video here, but I definitely wanted to let you know about the gray area. Forget about the gray area. It either is or is not. And when you start looking at things that way, like I said, things are so much simpler and freer because you don't get caught up in the illusion. So please comment below, put your thoughts, questions, tell me I'm wrong or whatever, because I want to interact with people. That's the whole purpose of these videos, so please share. And if you like the video, thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Ring-a-ding-ling, that bell for notifications to let you know when I upload videos. And as always, stay strong and God bless.